big thing that was causing my high blood pressure. So my chronic inflammation, that was the big cause of heart disease. Bells went off in my head, and I think that diet is super important. Diet is the most important thing to. Hey, welcome to my channel. This is Neil. I've been a nurse for the last 28 years, and I'm a new vegan. I started being vegan late last year, 2023, and by the end of November, and now we're in the end of February, so that's 3 months. So gonna tell you how or why I became vegan. So we're gonna go back a number of years. We're gonna go back to 2011, and then that's when I started researching, not about veganism, but I started researching about heart disease and the diets that were helpful in preventing and reversing heart disease. So that was my main focus back in 2011. I wanted to know, what was the cause of heart disease, and how to prevent it, right? So that's what my big focus was. So through my research and through my studies and my own experience as a nurse, what I found was that the best diet at the time was one or two diets. One was the Mediterranean diet, and the other one was a plant-based diet. The Mediterranean diet consisted of mostly plant-based, and then with nuts, legumes, and some meat associated with that. And the other one is just plant-based total. I had no idea what vegan was. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even heard of it back then. So that wasn't even on my radar as far as a diet. So then what happened was that I adopted the Mediterranean diet. I thought that was the best diet at the time. It showed a lot of a good promise as far as a good diet. The traditional heart-friendly diet is low fat, low cholesterol, has some low what do you call it, sugar, and then and then also being clean, being that you prepare the meals yourself and you don't rely on processed foods. One of the takeaways I took back then was that processed foods was another reason why people are getting sick. So anyways, my journey. So when I adopted this Mediterranean diet, that was my diet for the last 10 years. But then what happened is that several years ago, I started getting these gout attacks in my foot. So obviously very concerning for me because the pain was very intense and I didn't want to have that happen. So, I talked to my colleagues at work. When I got an acute attack, when the attack happened, I got the medication that was needed, and that helped resolve the attack. But I wanted to stop it. I wanted it not to happen, right? Because I knew from my research that gout was a symptom of a disease process that was starting, and that was one reason why I wanted it to stop. So I looked at numerous reasons, and it took me years to figure out how my body reacted to or how my body was producing the gout, which is uric acid crystals. And uric acid crystals gets accumulated in the joint, and then that's what causes the pain. For most people, that happens in the toe or the foot. It's usually where it gets accumulated first, but it can be accumulated in any joint anywhere in the body. Then there's a condition known as pseudo gout, where it actually mimics gout, but it's not gout. It's actually inflammation. Um, so during my studies back then, I came across this condition that the body happens was that it is a chronic inflammation that was the big cause of heart disease. So that, bells went off in my head, and I think that diet is super important. Diet is the most important thing to prevent any disease, really, and to potentially reverse any disease. So when I had these gout attacks, I wanted to figure out how to prevent them. How do I what's happening, what am I eating that is causing these gout attacks? That was my big question. And again, it took me years to figure out, trial and error. For the Mediterranean diet, fish was a big thing. Fish is very healthy as far as I thought, because of the omega-3s, which is anti-inflammatory, and chicken, being low fat, was a good source of protein. So that's predominantly what I ate. And occasionally I had some red meat, and occasionally I had some deli meat. But I was really hooked on a specific deli meat. I was really hooked on salami because it was a quick, easy snack, and I really loved it. So I ate that. But I still kept having these gout attacks. And I was having like 3 or 4 a year, and the doctor had told me that if it happened like any more than that, that was their limit, and I was going to have to go on medication for it. And I did not want to go on permanent medication for my gout attacks when I believed that it was actually diet that was causing the issue. So I was causing the issue, so I wanted to reverse it. I wanted it to change. So that what happened was then, over years, I was eliminating things, trial and error, and then I ended up having to live on my own in 2021 or 2022, and that so I started adopting more plant-based diet at the time. I wanted to get healthier, so I started walking more. I adopted a healthier diet. I was focusing more on plant-based, less on meat, but I was still eating meat at the time. So then what I did was I eventually cut out the deli meat and the red meat, and then you'll, lo and behold, right there, my gout attacks stopped. I stopped having gout attacks. So I had thought that it was the meat that was causing it, causing the purines to build up in my body. My liver would break down those purines, make it into uric acid, and then that was a big cause of my gout. So in 2022, 2021, 2022, I started switching out of meat. And my gout attacks were getting a lot better, and I was getting less and less and less gout attacks. So my body had said, no meat. This is what this was the cause that was creating the gout. But I also was drinking a lot of pop at the time as well. I was really hooked on pop or soda, and then that was another big thing that I needed to cut down because I wanted to get healthy, right? That was my goal back then. That was 3 years ago, and I was still focused on getting healthy. And I knew from my research in 2011 that a plant-based diet was one of the best diets because it had the potential to reverse heart disease. There was a lot of studies that were coming out that were showing that heart disease was being reversed in some people, not everybody, but some people, that plant-based diet was actually reversing it. But that aside, one of the big things that I wanted to reduce as well was cholesterol. My cholesterol level has always been high. I've always had an issue with that. So what happened in 2021 was that I started getting these feelings of dizziness. My head was feeling a little off. Kept feeling a pressure in my neck and felt the pressure in my kidney area as well. So I thought that was really weird. I had a colleague of mine do a blood pressure reading on me, and it actually showed I had high blood pressure. My blood pressure was 174 over 94. Super high, never had it that high. And I thought, well, there we go. Uric acid was the big thing that was causing my high blood pressure. So my uric acid was still high, obviously because it was creating high blood pressure. There's a link between uric acid and high blood pressure. This I knew. So my diet changing was progressively switching more to plant-based, going away from meats because my body's rejecting it because of the gout. And then so now I had to go on blood pressure medications. I had my heart checked out, I had my blood work done, everything was good other than my cholesterol being high. My heart was fine as far as the tests went. So I just focused on one thing at that time was my high blood pressure. So go on the medications. And then my blood pressure went to a normal level again, back to pre high blood pressure readings. So I was happy with that, but knowing that the disease process was progressing, it was slowly getting worse over time. So I didn't know exactly how it was going to progress any further than that. I thought that might have been over, but I knew that something serious was going on. So in 2021, I had to go on blood pressure medications. I didn't really have a family doctor because of COVID and all that. The family doctors were hard to find. So one of the things that I had to do was find a family doctor. So I asked a colleague, he took me on, so that we started working together. My gout attacks were getting less. If at that time was maybe once I just felt an ache in my toe, not really getting the flare-ups I did. So cutting out the meat for me was good. Then my blood pressure was high, so then I was still drinking a pop or soda, so I had to cut that down. So I started working on cutting down my soda. So by the end of 2022, I was down to maybe one soda a week, when I was drinking one soda a day, if not two. I also was drinking lots of coffee at the time too, so I had to cut that back. So I was slowly cutting that back. So by 2022, what I found was at that time was that I started getting bloated and not feeling well, especially when I ate cheese. Or my big favorite was ice cream too. So cheese and ice cream, I would get bloated and not feel good after that. I checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was fine still, so that wasn't the issue. So the big thing that was causing my bloated, I thought, well, okay, that's got to be dairy at that point. So I had to cut that down and cut that out. So because I like cheese, I started researching plant-based cheeses. So I found somebody who made some really good plant-based cheeses. So I started following their recipes. So that I was making plant-based cheeses, and then also putting cream in my coffee was another big factor. So I had to cut that out. So I came across making my own almond milk, because I don't want to go to the store every time I ran out of almond milk. I want to be able to make it myself, because I don't want any additives or any sugars that are in my milk, since I was cutting out refined sugars, refined and all those processed foods. So I just making my own almond milk, and almond milk is so super simple to make. You get a cup of almonds, throw it in a blender, blend it down, add in 4 cups of water, and then you just strain it out, and then boom, you got your milk. 10 minutes, done, easy. So I make at least 1 jug of almond milk a week, and then I use that for my coffee or tea or whatever I want to drink in a hot beverage. So that's super easy, super simple to do. So I did that. For a good 6 months. At the time, it was. Anyways, again, it was my goal to go more plant-based, to get more fiber, get less processed foods, to get less sugar, to cut out the meat. Then what happened was that in late of 2023, in October, I had a massive heart attack. I had it on the Friday in October, middle of the month. I was having this feeling of like an upset stomach, more like a reflux, like a burning sensation that was very minimal. It would come and go. Had about maybe a few bouts of that around lunchtime, and then it just went away, and I never thought of it. But I had it in the back of my head that if it got more serious, I'll just go to the hospital, get it checked out, make sure my heart's okay, make sure everything's going good, because I remember I got high blood pressure, high cholesterol. That's 2 of the risk factors. I was actually overweight for my height. For my height, I should be about 160, but I was sitting about 180. Not too terrible, and I know that a lot of people who get down to 180, they're super happy about that. They're super excited about having that weight. So, it wasn't a big deal, and I thought 20 pounds, what's the point? What's the big deal about that? But I didn't realize at the time, I do now, but I didn't realize at the time that actually did have a huge impact, especially the weight is being carried around my girth. It was carried around my waist, and that actually is another sign of heart disease. Anywho, so back to my heart attack. So a massive heart attack in the middle of October, and then that night around midnight, I was waking out of bed. I was having that reflux type pain. I was laying down, so I thought it was reflux. I'd sit up, and then it would go away. And then I, lay back down. It'll come back. I sit up. It'll go away. Then it would, I was sitting up, and it'll come back. So I thought, okay. So if this is reflux, I'll eat some bread to see if that actually soaks up the acid to reduce it. And then that went away. But then soon after, like minutes later, it'll come back. So I did this for the next hour and a half. And by 1:30 in the morning, it was slowly just getting more intense, more tightness is happening in my chest. And I knew something serious was going on. I was already starting to get dressed by 1 o'clock in the morning, thinking I was going to go to the hospital, get checked out, just so that they can tell me, and I'm an idiot. Everything's fine. Your heart's perfect. Just go home. And if I wasted 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure that everything was good, and that's why I started getting dressed at 1 o'clock in the morning. But by 1:30, the intensity was coming on a lot stronger, so I called an ambulance, and they asked me what my emergency was. So I think I'm having a heart attack. So they came, picked me up, and lo and behold, I was having what they call a STEMI, which is it's a heart attack. Very specific parts of the heart can be affected. Mine was on the right side. So they took me directly to the hospital, directly to the cath lab, and then in 1 hour after calling, I was on the table getting prepped. having the angioplasty, getting all that done. And so 1 hour after, I was basically starting to get repaired. They were treating me. So kudos to all the healthcare professionals that actually do all this training to get all this out there, and I appreciate everything that they've done. All their training and all, the paramedics, the doctors, the nurses in emergency, the cath lab techs, everybody worked together and seamless, and boom, everything was good. So I had 100% blockage of my right side of my heart. So no oxygen and no blood was getting to the right side of my heart. And if I waited, I would have been dead. Or the very least, severely disabled from that if I had waited. So thanks to me for doing some quick thinking. Yay, me. So anyways, so I was in the hospital for 24 hours and then I was able to be discharged out, which amazing for the medical profession at that time, to do in and out now, basically. Is like, okay, you're having a massive heart attack, it's a treatment, it's a procedure, boom, done, out. So I was like, whoa, don't I get any education? I know I'm a nurse, but anyways, yeah. So in and out. So I stayed with a friend for a month. I know in the hospital they gave me what was a heart-friendly diet. So what they gave me was processed sugars. They gave me meat, and they gave me processed foods, all of which, everything I was cutting out. They gave me apple juice, which was high in sugar. So I'm like, okay, I don't eat cream, or I don't have cream in my coffee. Is there any diet that I can have that will get this plant-based milk on my tray? And they said the only thing that they have that could do that was vegan. I went, vegan? All right. So I was already cutting out meat. My dairy's cut down. I was always cutting out my processed foods. I was already cutting down on my sugars. So I'm like, okay, so vegan it is then. So that's how I became vegan. I didn't plan on it. It just sort of evolved over time. So then what happened? I stayed with my friend who wasn't vegan. So I would have mostly plant-based meals, but occasionally, she was helping me out. So I didn't want to be too much of a bother. So occasionally I would have some meat, but mostly plant-based, and she was very helpful with that. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Anyways, so then when I was out of her care by the end of November, I came home. I was already starting to accumulate some vegan recipes, some vegan stuff, and then some vegan supplies. And then we can get to that later. This is a long-winded video. So anyways, at the end of November, I would classify myself as a vegan, and that's where we stand now. So, and then I've been making vegan dishes ever since. And then what I've noticed, prior to my heart attack, what happened was that my back was acting up. I was having this inflammation in my back, and my leg would go numb when I was walking. Prior to that, I was walking 5 to 6 kilometers a day, no issues. But after this back issue was starting to get involved, I could barely walk 2 kilometers before my leg would get numb. And there was one time that my leg gave out. So I was doing some research on how to do stretching and exercises to fix that. I got to my doctor. He checked me out. There's no clots or anything in my leg, so perfectly fine. So I was working on that. So since going vegan in November, now I can walk 5 kilometers again, and my leg doesn't go numb, because of my age and the fact that 3 years ago I was sedentary for the last 10 years prior to that. It takes a little bit of time for the muscle and the strength to come back. But what's the big takeaway from that was that my leg was starting to heal by eating mostly plant-based, because that's the only change I've actually really did, other than cutting out my sugars and my fats have been reduced. But the big thing was that I changed to a vegan diet, and then the inflammation in my back was starting to come down. Also, since November, so for 3 months, I had lost 15 pounds. And I don't feel, I always feel full. I never, I just listen to my body when I'm hungry. One of the big things that what I've done in my career as a nurse was that, most of the time I can't get many breaks in. I can get one really good break in. So I would eat one meal in a shift, and then I'm not hungry. So over the years, I became accustomed to eating only one meal. So I fast for 18 hours, mostly in 16 to 18 hours in a day. I listen to my body. Sometimes I'm starving, but it's very rare that I am, where I eat like 3-4 meals in a day. But most of the time I eat one meal and then I'm done for the day. So I do all that fasting. So that's a takeaway as well. So I had lost 50, and then prior to that, I had been 180 pounds, and I have not been able to lose any weight whatsoever prior on anything that I've done. So since November, I started incorporating some walking. I'm slowly increasing that. Now I'm up to 5 kilometers a day. And then since November, I've lost 15 pounds. And that's predominantly from a plant-based diet. And then, so it's been incredible, really. Love this plant-based diet. It's such an incredible journey. If you feel free to, talk about it more, we can always set up a Zoom call or whatever, and we could do a talk. So many things that we could do. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, and then we could talk some more about plant-based diet. But this is a series that I've want to do on why I became vegan, but also the health benefits to being vegan. There's numerous amounts of health benefits to it. There's a lot of research that's been doing around plant-based diets, and I want to share that with you. I want to help you get to your optimal health, and let's do it together. Let's get there, you and me. Boom.